All right, good morning, millionaires. Good morning, millionaires. Give me a replay, gang, if you're watching the replay. My name's Haziq Ali, and I'm a self-esteem development expert. I'm a revenue acceleration expert. I'm somebody who's dedicated to helping you go further, faster, with less effort. We call it Millionaire Minded. Y'all see that up there in the corner? Hold on. In the corner, we call that Millionaire Minded. You see that? It's like put your money where your mouth is. You can dig that? Put your money where your mouth is. What we also saying is that we're talking money. What we're also saying is that we're speaking it into existence. You know what I mean? Like we're making it. We're making it happen in our mind before it starts to pop off in reality for everybody. Can you dig that? We call it Millionaire Minded, man. And every single morning we do something we call Good Morning Millionaire. So whenever you see that logo, you know what I mean? I want you to think like that's Millionaire Minded. That's like we putting our money where our mouth is, you know, but also we speaking it into existence. The affirmations we do every morning, y'all, I was saying these same affirmations when I was homeless, you know, and way before I became a millionaire, I was a millionaire in my mind. Can you dig it? And I just want you to know you can do it too. I ain't got no college degree. You know what I mean? I don't have no special skills or talents. You know what I mean? I'm really not all that smart. You know what I mean? I always tell them it's like I'm not fast, but also I'm slow. You know what I mean? But it turns out you can go slow to go fast. Ain't that something? Somebody told me something that changed my whole life, man. What they explained to me, right, is that there's a concept that says if you will just improve a percentage every day, massive impact, massive transformation can happen. That changed my life, man. That changed my whole life. The idea that if I will just improve by 0.1% every day, then what happens is at the end of a week, I've improved by 0.5%. I can take off on Saturday and Sunday, and I've already improved by 0.5%, right? That means what happens is after a month, I've improved 2%. What happens is after a year, I've improved 26%. Listen to me. After 3 years of improving 0.1%, 5 days a week, I will double my performance. I will double my output, or I will double my income. Can you dig that? I want you to feel me this morning. I hope somebody feel me. All we trying to do is get a little bit better every day, man. Your life don't change in a day. Your life changes in the daily. You know, I just want to get you into a space where you create better habits. And we call it Millionaire Minded. You gotta talk it into existence. You gotta speak it. You gotta speak life. You gotta speak luxury, right? You gotta speak the next level, right? You gotta think bigger, man. It's time to think a little bigger. You know what I mean? If not us, who? We God's highest form of creation. God is working through our imagination. Who's supposed to do it if not us? And that's why I love entrepreneurs, man, because we the ones that push mankind forward. You hear me? Without us, civilization grinds to a halt. You hear me? All right, I'm about to call in on this live line, man. It's time for us to step it up to another level, y'all. That's what I'm trying to say. Welcome to a brand new month, baby. Welcome to the second half of the year. You hear me? I don't know if you're watching the replay. Give me a replay, gang. But as I report to you live, it's the second half of a brand new year, baby. And it starts today. How you feeling? I'm going to go ahead and call in on this live line, man. I feel incredible. I can't even lie to you, man. In certain areas, things could be better. In certain areas, things are going better than they ever had. But check it out. I feel wonderful.
And you're in the right place at the right time.
All right, let's get it.
Because we're going to bring the millionaire out of you.
All right, let's get it. Let's get it.
Hold on.
There are 50. Please enter your... Thank you.
All right, let's get it.
Please announce yourself. All participants are muted. Entry and exit tones are on.
All right. Good morning, millionaires. Good morning, millionaires. I hope you feel incredible this morning. My name is Haziq Ali, and I'm reporting to you live from the state of Georgia, but different than that, I'm in a different state of mind. You know what I mean? This morning we're going to talk about $1 million ideas, because at the end of the day, I feel like whether you're talking about some big company like Facebook, or you're talking about some big company like some big book like Chicken Soup of the Soul, you know, maybe you love you know, some huge TV show phenomenon like The Walking Dead or some graphic, right? But what all these things have in common is that they all started with $1 million idea. They all started with $1 million idea, right? And we always say every morning, one of our affirmations is that God creates through the use of our imagination, right? But I think it's interesting when we start to contemplate, how do we come up with these ideas, right? Like this morning, we're talking about like talking the money into existence. Like, you know, I was putting a lot of emphasis on the logo, because a lot of people don't get what we're saying is that we're talking money into existence. Like we're putting our money where our mouth is, right? But then also we're speaking it into existence. How do we make that happen, right? How do these creators come up with these ideas, right? Did they sit around waiting for some inspirational flash, some mystic spell of luck? Well, no, because the brain doesn't work off pressure. The brain works off stimulation. Spontaneity and luck have nothing to do with it. I ain't going to say nothing, but it has very little to do with it. So what we're going to talk about today is a bunch of tried and true techniques that some of the brightest, some of the best, some of the most successful entrepreneurs have used to generate $1 million ideas. You know, your boy Larry Page, who started Google, he said something wild. He was like, you don't need to have a 100-person company to develop and execute a good idea. Millionaires, a lot of times we confuse and conflate two different issues. Check it out, y'all. Teamwork makes the dream work, but it's you that gets the dream started. Oh, you're going to need a team, and the universe is going to send it to you, but it's you that got to get that thing started. So the first idea I want you to write down is that you got to generate lots of ideas. Millionaires, the first one is you got to generate lots of ideas. I cannot say enough about the idea that there are certain lists in our life that should be never ending. They should continue to evolve, right? There are certain lists in our lives that we should never stop adding onto. Well, one of them is your idea list. Millionaires, the more ideas you create, the more likely you are to create that $1 million one. You got to create lots of ideas. Now, Apple is one of those companies that I really, really look up to. I think that Steve Jobs has, you know, his legacy has shown us that if you had to think of what he was synonymous with, it would probably be creativity, right? Enhancing creativity is hella important in a world that's becoming so darn automated. And if you think about it, Apple is kind of synonymous with what you might call creative product design. Well, how did Steve Jobs pull this off? If you want to generate a bunch of ideas, that might be some helpful stuff to know, right? It might be helpful to know how one of the most creative people who actually executed on their ideas in our times used to operate. So I got 3 things from you for Steve Jobs. This is 3 different techniques Steve Jobs would use. 1, pursue diverse interests. Pursue diverse interests. I'm going to say it again. This is a Kaizen Academy key. The brain doesn't work off pressure. The brain works off stimulation. I mean, I don't know how many of you know Steve Jobs' story, but after he dropped out of Reed College, he just started jumping into classes that interested him. You know, classes that you're like, what the heck does that have to do with anything? Like, he took a class on calligraphy. There's no foreseeable practical purpose for him taking a calligraphy class. But in his famous Stanford commencement speech, he explains how him having that kind of awareness of calligraphy is responsible for the Mac's typography. The way the Mac has this ill little way, a lot of that had to do with that calligraphy class he took. Creativity is just connecting things. As a matter of fact, Steve Jobs had an ill point of view on creativity. And again, we still on number 1. We still on number 1. Share this with an entrepreneur who needs to hear this, right? But he had an ill point of view. He said a lot of times when you ask a creative person how they did something, they feel a little bit guilty because they didn't feel like they really did it. They just saw something. I mean, it felt obvious to them after a while. Isn't that interesting? What we're saying is that a lot of times it ain't about thinking outside the box so much as it is drawing from different boxes, right? It turns out that the more you expose yourself, the more raw material you have to create with. Does that make sense, everybody? All right, so that's the first one, a diverse interest. The second one might surprise you, but it's walking. Some of us, are in that place where we are starting to get into walking just to make sure we're moving our body. But there's an extra benefit to the walking. You can choose that walk as a time where you catch up with friends, talk to prospects, chop it up with your inner circle, okay? Or what you can do is use that walk to spark creativity. There's this book called Becoming Steve Jobs that's wild, where he talks about how Steve Jobs a lot of times would take brainstorming walks, right? And the research now confirms that these walks help unlock creative insights. He would go to conferences and be like, well, nah, I ain't really tripping off speaking on a thing, but what we can do is get together and we can take a walk, right? He would have some of his most important conversations while taking a walk. Walk can trigger an aha moment like you won't believe, because what you're doing is you're getting your conscious mind busy doing something. Now your conscious mind is looking at the trees. Your conscious, don't mess around and start paying attention to the differences in the trees, what we start to call mindfulness, where you're really in the moment, okay? But what happens is, anybody ever used to play video games, and you would listen to your favorite song, your favorite music. Now they kind of put stuff in the games and whatnot. But anybody old enough to remember, you will be playing video games. You'll put on your Walkman, right? And then all of a sudden you getting the highest scores that you ever hit. Anybody can relate to that? Anybody remember that? Playing video games and then you'll distract yourself with something. And now all of a sudden you're hitting all these high scores. Well, see, what happens is you're getting your conscious mind busy with the music, and then your subconscious can take over and start solving problems. The reason why I want you to throw yourself even into one new technique a day is we're doing this 90-day challenge. You hear me, Felicia? You hear me, Shiz? You hear me, Erica? You hear me, Vita? You know what I mean? You hear me, Mrs. Goins? The reason why I want you to throw yourself into one new technique a day is because when the real learning happens at nighttime, y'all. The real learning happens at nighttime. And you need to embrace these new challenges, these new areas, because what happens is when you're walking or when you go to sleep, your brain clicks on and starts solving everything that you bumped up against that was quote unquote difficult. Your brain says, we weren't able to solve that. And since your brain is a problem solving device, it can solve a $10,000 problem, just like it can solve a $10 million problem. It's just on you to bump up against it so your brain realizes that this is something that it's trying to solve. Am I making sense to somebody out there? So walking is the second technique Steve Jobs would do to just click his brain on, so he's keeping his conscious mind busy so this incredible supercomputer we refer to as the subconscious can click in. The subconscious is what's keeping all of this going. Your brain beating. It's listening for sounds. It's forming your tongue. It's translating it so you type it in your keyboard. It's telling you who to text right now. You get what I mean? Your subconscious is insanely good. But the thing is, a lot of times we major in the minor. So what I'm suggesting is that you combine this diverse kind of like a list making ability with letting your subconscious mind kind of get cracking on some of that, so you have no fear about achieving these goals, right? And then the third one that Steve Jobs would use is meditation. I don't want to scare nobody off with this meditation thing, but I do want you to know that when Steve Jobs dropped out of Reed College, he went to India and started embracing Zen Buddhism. He almost was going to move to Japan. He got so enamored with the idea of meditation. He was just like, enamored with the idea that if you sit and observe, your mind is almost never calm. And then when you try to calm your mind, it's like when you tell somebody calm down on an airplane, they're like, I am calm. And the next thing you know, they're getting kicked. You know what I mean? It makes it worse. So you can't do that. But what you can do is start to meditate. You can start to focus on just your thoughts, focus on just your breathing. Intuition starts to blossom. And Steve Jobs would call his meditation practice one of the biggest reasons he was able to have the level of empathy he would have with customers, where he could give them what they wanted, even if they couldn't really describe it. Isn't that interesting? It doesn't just enhance creativity, it enhances this superpower we all have access to called empathy. Millionaires, if you were more empathetic, you would get rich. If you were more empathetic, you would have more money in your bank account because you almost start to become a mind reader. You get what I mean? If you increase your emotional intelligence, you reduce your stress because you're not frustrated, you become compassionate. You become helpful instead of harmful. And you become more healed instead of more harm. And healed people heal people. I could go on and on and on. All right. Can you believe it? All of that was just number one. So we saying like, there's 10 ways to create $1 million idea. One is generate lots of ideas. And if you're getting stuck on lots of ideas, I just gave you some ways to kind of like get more in touch, right? Here's the second one. Fail a lot. Fail a lot. If you want to create $1 million idea, you gotta fall out of love with the idea of perfection. We've done whole trainings on that. Perfectionism is a curse of the poor. Can somebody give me that in the comments? We just gonna fail a lot. Somebody give me that in the comments. Perfectionism is a curse of poverty. Perfectionism is a curse of poverty, right? All the ideas that don't work, y'all, they ain't nothing but stepping stones towards the one that will. Sometimes you gotta fail 1,000 times to succeed. It's okay. You know, I was listening to it's this dude named Tim Grover. I kind of want my inner circle to check this out. It's this book called Relentless. It's this another one called Winning. It's from this cat called Tim Grover, who is Michael Jordan's trainer, but also Kobe Bryant's trainer. And he was talking about how winning, man, winning will sit there and she'll just keep her hands in her pocket until she feels like you're worthy, until you're willing to, you've got to do the extra. And then once you win, anybody that's ever won will tell you winning again is even harder. You got to come different. Every winner that ever won, I mean, they would come to him. Everybody else is celebrating in the locker room. They come and they in his ear like, what's next, right? He was like, if you could take Wayne Gretzky, take Kobe Bryant, take Michael Jordan, take Tiger Woods, monotone their voice down, make it so all of them sound the exact same, you wouldn't know who you're talking to. Every single time the mindset is the exact same. Every single time. I don't know how many of y'all know when Kobe Bryant first came into the league, he's 17, 18 years old. He throws all these air balls up against Utah. He's blowing shot after shot after shot after shot. That would have broke an average man. Kobe was like, what's next? And then he decides to use that as, what I'm saying is you got to fail a lot. You know, home run king is usually the strikeout king. You got to fail a lot. You know, what other sport can we take it to? Let's see. That was baseball. That was basketball. You know, what I'm telling you is that at the end of the day, the learning device that most people don't leverage quite enough is a mistake. But most people stick in their comfort zone so long that they never get to grow. There's no growth in your comfort zone, just like there's no comfort in your growth zone. Perfectionism is a curse of the poor. That's just straight facts. That's just straight facts, Taisha. Here's number 3, y'all. Here's number 3. Consume information consciously. Consume information consciously. You crazy, Mark. Consume information consciously. Some of my friends think that I'm wasting time. You know what I mean? I'm in the shower. I'm listening to personal development. I'm riding in the car. You know what I mean? Especially if I'm riding by myself. I don't be wanting to irritate nobody. But, you know, all I do is I don't spend a lot of time on the news and all that. If I'm in the, you know, if I'm in the tub, if I'm in the shower, if I'm riding around, if I'm in the gym, you know, I'm consuming information. They think I'm wasting time. They like, man, you don't never have. Nah, man, this is what gives you an edge. I feel engulfed with new ideas. I feel like just awash with new information. And then on top of that, if I get to get out here and apply it immediately, I actually use what I've learned to create wealth in my life. And all I'm saying is that in capitalism, since money only changes hands due to somebody knowing something somebody don't know, listen, man, you learn more, you earn more. In capitalism, it's based on ignorance. That means you learn more, you earn more. We're in a free market economy. That means every time somebody got a problem, that's an opportunity for us. But when you read things and when you interact with people, you take off your consumer hat, okay? Or take off your competitor hat. And instead you put on your creator cap. What happens is $1 million ideas start to come from all over the place. I'm suggesting, some of you have access to something called the Nove Library, where there are thousands and thousands of the best books ever written in 10-minute audio summaries. Oh, what a tragedy if you're not using it. Oh, you might not understand everything that they smash into your head, but here's what I guarantee you. A year from now, your whole life is different because you learn more, you earn more, you become more. If you want more, you got to become more. You have to be before you'll do, before you'll have. Here's number 4, y'all. Here's number 4. You gotta, all right, now we're getting into more, now we're getting into more like the practical, now I need you, you know what I mean? Here's number 4. Here's number 4. We talking about $1 million ideas, right? Here's number 4. You gotta focus on topics and ideas with large markets. Share this with somebody who needs to hear this, y'all. You gotta focus on topics and ideas with large markets. $1 million ain't even a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. You know what I mean? I read somewhere that something like 1,700 new millionaires are getting created every week or something crazy like that. I know that's unfathomable to some of us, but don't forget, $1 million ain't nothing but $500 times 2,000 people or $2,000 times 500 people. Listen, if I sell 500 franchises, I'm a millionaire plus the residual from each one of the franchises. You know what I mean? That's in my world. What about your world? What I'm saying is $1 million is not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, but it definitely is a lot of money if you're trying to do it with 10-cent paper clips. What I'm saying to you is that if you're trying to earn money, you got to think a little bit about topics and ideas that solve problems for lots of people. Even if you put Steve Jobs in the role of CEO for some new venture that only has a maximum market of 100 people, he couldn't make more than a few cents. Big bucks result from big demand. Big money gets made based on big problems. You're not going to be able to sell mink coats on the beach because businesses solve problems. But you need to focus on big problems. Here's number 5. Make sure there's money in the market. I was just at the Ripley's Museum, when I, took my family to Disney and all of that. I completely forgot it was Juneteenth weekend, but that's a whole nother story. Anyway, find ourselves in the Ripley's Museum, and it's this exhibit on these bank robbers, and this cat, Pretty Boy Floyd, and all these other people, Bonnie and Clyde. But then this other cat came along, I think it might have been Dillinger, and he robbed more banks in 1 year than all these other fools who were like legends Rob put together. It's like, why you rob so many banks? He was like, because that's where the money is. What I'm saying is, before you become emotionally attached to an idea, do a little market research. Make sure the idea you're pursuing is where the money is. Who are the clients? Who are the consumers? How much disposable income do they have? All right. Number 6, keep your eyes, your ears, and your mind open. Again, we call this Millionaire Minded, right? Because you don't see with your eyes, you see with your mind. We call this Millionaire Minded because you don't see with your eyes, you see with your mind, right? You got to keep your eyes and your ears open. A lot of times, one idea's failure will open the door to a whole new idea. You can't get so hung up on one failed attempt that you miss the opening for a bunch. You got to keep your eye. One thing about my business partners, they are used to me by now. Man, I got, so many of my ideas have failed, went up in flames. Anybody in Nove remember the newsletters? That was me. That was me. You know what I mean? But one thing about the office environment, one thing about our corporate structure, one thing about the way we play, we're like, listen, man, we just keeping our eyes and our ears and our minds open because you ain't going to know if it works or not until you try it. Here's number 7. On that note, test variations of the same idea. Test very, before I leave number 6, right? Some people know that we had a no money down program, and it let people in, even if they only had like, a 650 credit score and all of that. All they needed was $3,400 a month to qualify. It was amazing. But for the experience, certain things were kind of janky. Like you had to join a Telegram group and you had to do all of these I won't bore y'all with the details, but what I will say is that because we kept our eyes, ears, and our minds open to that opportunity, what happened is we were able to craft and sculpt a completely different variation of the same idea that now is completely automated. It's useful not just us, but now we get to help other people with consumer financing. And then not only that, it is a 600 credit score now. There's no income verification, right? Think about the iPhone and the iPad for a minute. One is just a variation of the other. Both are $1 million ideas. What if you changed your mindset? Instead of you trying to put all your, instead of you, oh my God, if this doesn't work, what will I do? What will I do? What you'll do is test another variation of the same idea. Who cares? That's a small thing to a giant. Here's number 8. Figure out what works well in one market and then tailor it to another. If you're millionaire minded, if you rock with us, we know one of the things you have to do is study the rock. Before you start that enterprise, you got to study the rock. The red ocean category king. What's the red ocean? That's the market that's getting so much money that all the sharks are there creating a feeding frenzy. We call that a red ocean because of all of the blood in the water. All the sharks are jumping on it. We call entrepreneurs sharks. When you watch Shark Tank, right? It's like the whole idea of a red market. So before you jump in that market, what we do, we get in there and study who the king is. We get in there and study who the queen is. We want to understand how they're delivering their message. We want to understand what their customers love about them. We want to understand, check this out, what their customers don't like about them, so that we can fix that in our product. We want to find out what customers were expecting from them that didn't show up in the product, so that we can say, dang, you know what? That's a good point. Maybe that needs to be what we base our whole company around, just serving that part right there. What I'm saying is, find an idea that's already proven and think about how you can tailor it, how you can put it in a different context. The brain don't work off pressure. The brain works off stimulation. What I'm saying to you is that if you normally read Home and Garden, ladies, maybe this is the week you pick up a Sports Illustrated. Fellas, if you normally read, USA Today, maybe this is the week you pick up Guns and Ammo. Maybe that's the way you pick up Home and Garden, fellas, because the brain don't work off pressure. The brain works off stimulation. You take a formula that works in one niche, apply it to a new niche. It's something regular over here, but over here it sets off an atomic bomb. Don't you know the ballpoint pen gave us roll-on deodorant? Don't you know Berry Gordy took the assembly line thing from Henry Ford and used it to create Motown? Check it out. Don't you know Henry Ford took the idea of the plant from George Washington Carver, where he said, look at how plants work together. Look how plants create their own manufacturing. Henry Ford was like, oh my God, we can put this around people. And now we call them plants. We don't say factories, right? We call them a plant. What I'm saying is figure out what works well in one market and tailor it to another. And that's why we study nature, because ain't nothing working better than nature. I ain't even going to go there right now. That's a whole nother training. All right, number 9, put the pieces together. Put the pieces together. We almost out of here. We got to go. We about to go put the pieces together with our affirmations, right? But put the pieces together. YouTube's creators ain't invent Flash. They didn't invent modern digital photography. They didn't invent modern digital cameras that can record computer-ready imagery and all of this stuff. YouTube ain't do none of that. YouTube didn't invent broadband internet connections. YouTube didn't invent cheap web hosting. YouTube didn't invent embedded website content, right? Uploading technology. No. What YouTube invented was a technology that takes all these existing pieces and combines them into an online video sharing portal. And now they're one of the biggest companies on the planet. Man, talk to him, Jerry. Talk to him. Talk to him. All I'm saying is Steve Jobs ain't invented touch screens. Steve Jobs ain't invent apps. You know, there's this other company that I know of that didn't invent personal credit help, business credit help, real estate investment training, consumer financing. They ain't invent that, but I tell you what, you put it all together and what you got is an iPhone, baby. What you got is a McDonald's of financial services, right? And that brings us to number 10. What if you can spin a new twist on a previous breakthrough, right? Like a new twist on an old idea can still be $1 million idea. Take Facebook. Facebook was not wasn't the first big social networking site. But what Mark Zuckerberg, depending on who you either stole it or thought of it, but he added a bunch of twists and features that others didn't grasp. How can you take an existing $1 million idea or even a common idea and give it a new twist, a new direction, and give yourself a new journey? Millionaires, it's affirmation time. Speaking a new journey. Maybe this is the time for you to kick in. This weekend's Kaizen Academy. We're just going to focus on critical thinking. You're going to really enjoy this class. If you haven't joined the Kaizen Academy, maybe this is the time to do it. It's a tax write-off. You get to invest in yourself. But I'm going to tell you something. Even if you don't, you should try affirmations. Try a little visualization. We do it every morning. You can call this number. If your line tries to charge you, because maybe you're on T-Mobile or one of these others, just text message call me to the same number. Just text message call me to that same number. We're going to make it happen. 667-776-9461. Or it could be like win one. 667-776-win1. No passcode. Or you can just text message call me. Wait about 5 seconds and we'll just call you. And that'll be free. All right, millionaires, repeat after me. Say it like you mean it. I am so